and everyone, and good morning for those who are in the Philippines. Um, for all of us gathered, before I give a bit of a sharing, I just would like to say thank you again to Brother Jess Moya and to greet all the fathers here. Advance Happy Father's Day. So quite appropriate is the topic because it's about having to honor your father and your mother and having to go to the foundation of fatherhood or parenthood by the virtue of marriage. This is the gate entry into family life. Marriage. That's the reason why marriage and family life is always together. So marriage and family life is part of the ministry also of the church. And when we understand that, we have to understand also why it is so important and how foundational it is to see ourselves more basically in the leadership or parents, the leadership role uh, with the nucleus church. I mean the mini church, the family, how it's important that we see our leadership in the image and likeness of God. So I'll just have to emphasize this with the title of Father being as the pillar of the church. When you say the Father is the pillar of the church, it doesn't mean that he because he's the breadwinner, he's the disciplinarian, or he is the one who knows everything, or he is the protector of the family. He is the pillar of the church based upon biblical understanding of fatherhood. And that's a patristic, yes, patristic, but it is more based on the image of the Father himself, of Abba, Father of heaven. And that three pillar is this. The Father is the pillar and should be the pillar of faith. Biblically, the Father is the one leading the Passover meal. The Father is the one reading the scriptures and reminding the children. He is also the one keeping with the tradition. The Father is the one who makes the decision in behalf of the precepts and the laws of the people of God. So the Father is the one who should be keeping the faith because it is in reflection of our God the Father, who is Abba, who is a faithful God. If we need to be the pillar of faith for the family, he need because of the fact that God is faithful and God is covenant. And that from which we come to understand why the father needs to be that, as well as in relationship with the wife who is the mother. Why? Because they have to work together. As in Ephesians, it is said that a husband should a wife should subject herself to her husband. That is true. The wife should subject herself, but the husband has a greater responsibility. Love your wife as you love yourself. If you cannot love your wife, how can the wife subject herself? Because the husband should surrender his whole heart and his mind to the wife before the wife could subject herself. And that's the fallacy of the relationship we have right now. The husband is not no longer becoming a person who's doing its part as found in scriptures. Not that the wife should or obligated to subject herself, but the husband should also love the wife, surrendering his heart, surrendering his mind to the relationship with the. That's the reason why they are equal and both heirs to the kingdom of heaven. Now, the second pillar is this. The father is the pillar of the home, mainly because the father is the pillar of virtue. As you may well know, the firstborn should always get the birthright. But in history, between Esau and Jacob, the father Isaac gave the birthright, though there was a little bit of cunningness there from the mother and Jacob, but still God gave the birthright to Jacob. Why? Because he is the more virtuous than Esau. Jacob became the father of Israel mainly because he was more virtuous, in reflection that every father should be a pillar of virtue because of the fact that um, God the Father is the God of all goodness. He is all good. He is omniscient. and at the same time, he is all benevolent. And that means that every father who takes up that responsibility, including priests, I tell you, that's the reason why the priest is called father. It reminds us that he is the father of the church. He is the father taking part in reflection to God the Father himself. It is a vicarious role. And that's the reason why the Holy Father, the Pope, is considered also a father. And that from which we come to understand every person who takes up the role of a father should be virtuous in order to have the birthright of fatherhood. And now the third one is that he should be the pillar of love. As you may well know, the one who courted first in the relationship. I don't know about your relationship, but basically in tradition, it's the father or the husband who courted the wife first in courtship. But nowadays, I know that there's a pro women, neoliberalism to the point that women are the one already taking the charge of courting their husband to be. But in tradition, the father should reflect first the love before the love will grow in the relationship, and that's the reason why. Now, what is the problem right now in relationship? And what's the problem with family right now? We no longer share the image and likeness of God. The father no longer becomes the father of faith, but the promoter of the absence of faith, and he becomes unfaithful. And the second part, the father is no longer the pillar of virtue, he becomes more the pillar of vices. The infidelity coupled with drinking and gambling and all these activities secretly, even without the knowledge of the wife, and that's the problem. Honesty becomes as the sacrifice of vices. And the last part is you have to be the pillar of love, which right now fathers are less expressive of their love. I know there's always the exemption of the rule, but it seems that because the father needs to be the breadwinner, the disciplinarian, and protector, he has lost that gift of expressing. As Jesus expressed his love for his father, and as the father in John 3:16 expressed his love for his son and the whole humanity, I do believe that is the thing that is lost in fatherhood. And now we have this problem, and that also sacrificed the relationship of marriage and later on affected the family life. As we come to understand this more fully, we come to go back to basic. And going back to basic is to understand the gift of parenthood. A gift of parenthood is going back to the mind and heart of God the Father. And only then we would find our place again and we would find our way back home. And that, I do believe, is why we have this understanding. Thank you very much for allowing me to share.